The rain started just after 3. I watched it from the kitchen window. It traced silver lines down the glass. The world outside blurred into soft greens and grays. I had just finished my tea. The cup was still warm in my hands. My routine was simple. I liked it that way. Morning coffee with the news, a walk in the garden if the weather allowed, lunch at noon, afternoon tea at 3. The house was quiet. It was a good quiet. The quiet of a space that belonged entirely to me. The phone rang at 3:15. It was my sister, Marion. Her voice was bright. It was always a little too bright for a Tuesday afternoon. Evelyn, hello. I was just thinking about you. Hello, Marion. It's pouring over here. Are you managing? Do you need anything? I told her I was fine. I always told her I was fine. It was easier. Listen, she said. Don't bother cooking tonight. Jeremy and I are coming over. We'll bring dinner. He's got some papers for you to sign. Nothing major. Jeremy was her husband. He was a financial advisor. He always had papers. What papers? Just some beneficiary updates. On the investment account Dad left. Standard procedure. We'll explain it all. See you at 6. She hung up before I could ask more. I placed the phone back in its cradle. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. My hair was more gray than brown now. My face was my mother's face. I was 67. I lived alone. To Marion, those two facts were a problem waiting to happen. They arrived promptly at 6. Jeremy carried a bag of takeout. Marion carried a folder. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was strong. You look tired, Ellie. Are you sleeping? I sleep fine. The house feels damp. Is the heat on? She was already moving through the living room. She adjusted a picture frame. She straightened a cushion. Her eyes cataloged everything. We ate at the dining table I rarely used. The food was good. The conversation was not. Jeremy finished his meal. He wiped his mouth neatly. He opened the folder. Now, Evelyn, this is straightforward. Marion is listed as your power of attorney on a few old documents. We just need to update it to a more comprehensive version. A durable power of attorney. It covers healthcare and finances. It's for your protection. He slid a document toward me. The text was dense. The paragraphs were long. Why does it need updating? The old one is from 10 years ago. The laws have changed. This is more robust. It just makes things smoother if you ever need help. Marion reached over and patted my hand. It's a precaution, sweetie, like insurance. We just want to be able to take care of you if you get sick. You wouldn't want strangers making decisions, would you? It sounded reasonable. It always sounded reasonable. Where do I sign? Jeremy pointed to 3 lines. He had sticky arrows placed on them. I used my pen. The ink flowed blue and permanent. Perfect, Jeremy said. He gathered the papers. I'll get these notarized and filed. You won't have to think about it again. Marion smiled. It was a smile of relief. Now, let's talk about the garden. It's getting overgrown. Jeremy knows a wonderful landscaping service. They'll take care of everything. You shouldn't be wrestling with hedges. I loved my garden. It was my project, my sanctuary. I manage the garden just fine, Marion. Of course you do, but let us help. It's one less thing for you to worry about. Help, that was the word they used. It was the key that unlocked every door. The landscapers came the following Tuesday. 3 men with loud machinery. They pruned the rose bushes I had nurtured for 15 years. They cut back the lilac tree until it was a stark collection of sticks. They declared the stone path a tripping hazard and covered it with shredded mulch. They left a bill for $1,200. A copy was sent to Jeremy. When I called Marion, her tone was gentle, chiding. Evelyn, we discussed this. They're professionals. The garden is safe now. No more falling risks. Jeremy handled the payment from your account. It's all taken care of. I walked through my transformed garden. It looked tidy. It looked sterile. It no longer looked like mine. That was the beginning. The control was a slow bleed. A month later, Jeremy suggested consolidating my accounts. "Too many statements," he said. "It's confusing. Let's move everything to one bank. I'll set up online banking for you. I can help monitor things." I gave him the login information for my old accounts. He set up the new one. The statements started coming to his office, for my convenience. Then it was the car. Marion decided it was too old, too unreliable. "What if it breaks down on you in the middle of nowhere? Let's get you something newer, safer." They took me to a dealership. Jeremy negotiated. They traded in my sedan. They leased a small SUV. The payments were automatic from my new consolidated account. I drove home in the high, unfamiliar vehicle. It smelled of artificial lemon. I missed the familiar scent of my old car. It had smelled of peppermints and library books. The help expanded. A cleaning service came every other week. They rearranged my kitchen drawers. They threw out a chipped mixing bowl I had used for 40 years. Marion said it was for the best. Clutter is a cognitive load, Ellie. A clear space means a clear mind. My mind felt no clearer. It felt increasingly crowded with questions I did not ask. The first real betrayal happened in October. My nephew, Ben, was getting married. Ben was my brother's son. My brother had passed away 5 years prior. I was his only aunt. The wedding was in Vermont. Marion and Jeremy were going. They booked a suite. They never mentioned booking a room for me. A week before, I asked about the itinerary. Marion looked surprised, then concerned. "Oh, Ellie, we didn't think it's a long drive. The wedding is late. The travel would be so exhausting for you, and all the noise and the crowd. We thought it would be overwhelming. We decided it was better for you to rest." I felt the air leave the room. "Ben is my nephew. I want to be there." "He understands, really. We told him you weren't up for it. He sends his love." Her voice was smooth. It was a done deal. I had been uninvited by proxy. The day of the wedding, I sat in my living room. I looked at the clock. At 2, the ceremony would start. I imagined my family filling a pew. There would be an empty space where I should have been. Marion called that evening. Her voice was cheerful, slightly tipsy. "It was beautiful, Evelyn. You would have loved it, but you were right to stay home. It was so loud. You would have been miserable." I had said no such thing. "Did Ben ask about me?" A pause. "Of course he did. I told him you were thinking of him. Now get some rest. You sound upset." After I hung up, I felt a strange calm. It was the calm of finally seeing the trap. The door had been quietly closed. I was on the wrong side of it. Things began to make a different kind of sense. Jeremy called a week later. His voice was grave. "Evelyn, we need to talk about the house. The property taxes have spiked. The roof is original. The heating system is a relic. The maintenance is becoming a financial drain. And those stairs, Marion worries constantly." "What are you saying, Jeremy?" "A managed senior living community. We've found a lovely one. It's a rental, all-inclusive, no more worries about bills or repairs. You'd be around people. There are activities." "I don't want activities. I want my home." "It's not about want, Evelyn. It's about what's sustainable. We have to think long-term. We have a fiduciary responsibility." He used that word, fiduciary. It sounded important. It sounded legal. "I need to think about it." "Of course. Take your time. But the market is hot. We should list the house in the spring to get the best price." He was already listing it in his mind. My home, the house I had lived in for 40 years, the house where I raised my daughter, the house where my husband had died peacefully in his sleep. It was an asset to be liquidated, a problem to be solved. That night I didn't sleep. I walked through the quiet rooms. I touched the walls. I sat in my husband's old study. The desk was still there. The filing cabinet in the corner was locked. I had not opened it in years. I found the small brass key taped to the bottom of a drawer. I opened the filing cabinet. Inside were old tax returns, deeds, insurance policies. My husband, Arthur, had been meticulous. He was an architect. He loved details. He believed in documentation. I began to read, not with panic, with purpose. I found our original mortgage paperwork. I found the deed. The house was in my name, only my name. Arthur had left it to me, free and clear. I found the will, a simple one. I left everything to my daughter, Clara. If she predeceased me, everything went to a named charity. My sister, Marion, was not mentioned. Clara had died at 19, a car accident on a rainy night. The pain of that loss was an old, deep canyon inside me. I had never updated the will. I had never been able to. According to this document, if I died, Marion inherited nothing. This was important. I did not yet know why. I kept looking. I found statements for an investment account. It was from my father's estate. It was the account Jeremy had mentioned. The beneficiary was listed as Alina Graham, or upon her death to Clara Graham. Clara was gone. That meant the account would go to my estate. It would follow the will. It would not go to Marion. Jeremy had said they were updating beneficiaries. He never said to what. I needed to see the document I had signed. I called the investment company the next morning. I posed as Marion. I used her birth date, which I knew. I said I was checking on the beneficiary form my husband had recently filed. The representative was helpful. Yes, Mrs. Delaney. The change was processed last month. The primary beneficiary is now listed as Marion Delaney. The contingent is Jeremy Delaney. I thanked her. I hung up. So that was the first move. Redirect the largest asset outside of the house. The one that would have flowed into my estate. They had diverted it to themselves. The power of attorney gave them control over everything that remained. The plan was becoming clear. Isolate me, control my environment, convince me and everyone else of my declining competence, use the power of attorney to sell my house, move me into a rented room. My money would pay for it. They would control the rest. Eventually, I would die in that pleasant, managed facility. They would inherit what was left, which would be very little, but they would have already secured the investment account. It was a quiet, legal transfer of a lifetime of assets. It was not violent. It was not loud. It was administrative strangulation. I felt no rage. I felt a cold, clarifying focus. I went to the library. I used a public computer. I created a new email address. I began to type. I documented everything. I wrote down dates, conversations. I listed the things they had taken over, the garden, the car, the accounts. I noted the wedding exclusion. I recorded the call about the senior living community. I scanned the old will. I scanned the deed. I saved the image of the original beneficiary designation for the investment account. I wrote calmly. I stuck to facts. I avoided adjectives. I was not building an emotional case. I was building a paper trail. The next step was legal, but I could not use a lawyer they might know. I needed someone entirely outside their sphere. I found him online. His name was David Chen. His practice focused on elder law and estate litigation. His reviews spoke of quiet competence. He was located in the city, an hour away. I called and made an appointment. I did not use my home phone. I used a prepaid cell phone I bought at the pharmacy. I told Marion I was going to the city for a day, to visit the museum. She was pleased. A day out, that's wonderful for you. The change of scenery will do you good. Mr. Chen's office was quiet. He was a man in his 50s. He had a calm, listening face. I laid it out for him, not as a story of betrayal, as a sequence of events. I showed him the documents I had brought, the old will, the deed, my notes. He read in silence. He looked at the power of attorney document copy I had from Jeremy. This is very broad, Mrs. Graham. It gives them sweeping authority. They haven't acted on it fully yet, beyond the smaller things you've described. Not yet. They want to sell my house. That would be the major move, he said. He templed his fingers. What is your goal? I had thought about this. I want them out of my life. I want their authority revoked. I want my assets secured in my name only. I want to ensure my final will is enforced, the one leaving my estate to charity. You don't wish to leave anything to your sister? No. He nodded. He did not ask for justification. He saw the map they were drawing. We need to move before they do, he said. We file a petition to revoke the power of attorney. We allege undue influence and a conflict of interest. We file a separate civil suit to reclaim the investment account. The changed beneficiary is a clear result of the undue influence they exerted through the POA. Will it work? It's a process. It requires evidence. Your documentation is a good start, but they will fight. They will claim they were acting in your best interest. They will suggest you are confused. That is their most likely defense. I am not confused. He gave a small, grim smile. I believe you, but we need to prove it to a judge. We will need a competency evaluation, an independent one. It will be intrusive. Are you prepared for that? I said I was. There is another step, a more immediate one. We can file a asterisk lis pendens. What is that? A notice on the title of your house. It means litigation is pending that could affect ownership. It will prevent them from selling or refinancing the property. It clouds the title. No one will buy it with that on there. Do it, I said. The paperwork began. It was a mountain of it. Petitions, affidavits, financial disclosures. Mr. Chen's paralegal helped me. We worked for hours in quiet conference rooms. I told no one. I maintained my routines. I had tea at 3. I took my walks. Marion and Jeremy visited. They brought up the senior living community again. They had brochures. Look at this one, Ellie. They have a pottery studio. I looked at the glossy pictures. I nodded. I said it looked nice. I was playing my part, the agreeable, slightly vague older sister. While I nodded, the asterisk lis pendens was being recorded at the county clerk's office. The first legal notice arrived at Jeremy's office a week later. It was served formally. A petition to revoke the power of attorney. A suit to rescind the beneficiary change due to undue influence. Their reaction was not slow. Marion called me. The bright tone was gone. It was sharp with betrayed anger. Elinor, what is this? What have you done? Jeremy is devastated. After all we've done for you, we've only ever tried to help. I do not want your help anymore, Marion. This is ridiculous. You don't understand what you're doing. You're going to lose everything. You need us. Who do you think will take care of you when you fall, when you forget to pay your bills? I will manage. You can't. This is your confusion talking. We're going to fight this, Elinor. We have to, for your own good. She hung up. Jeremy's lawyer contacted Mr. Chen. They offered to settle. They proposed a compromise. They would step back from the POA if a neutral third party was appointed. They would keep the investment account as a fee for services rendered. They would drop the idea of selling the house. Mr. Chen relayed the offer. It's an admission of weakness, he said. They don't want a judge looking too closely. What is your response? No, I said. No compromise. The fight was now official. It moved into the procedural phase. It was slow. It was tedious. It was everything the movies never show. Discovery requests, document production, interrogatories. Jeremy's lawyer asked for my medical records. I provided them. My doctor stated I was in good health for my age. No cognitive issues noted. They demanded a deposition. I gave one. It lasted 5 hours. Their lawyer was a woman with a polite, piercing voice. Mrs. Graham, is it true you often forget to take your medications? I use a weekly pill organizer. I rarely forget. Did you not, last Thanksgiving, Leave the stove on overnight. I turned the wrong burner off. I realized it an hour later and corrected it. It was a mistake. A mistake that could have burned your house down. Do you not think that shows a lapse in judgment? It shows I am human. The questions were designed to build a mosaic of incapacity. A forgotten name here, a missed appointment there. They took my normal, human errors and framed them as symptoms. My lawyer deposed Marion and Jeremy. He asked Jeremy about the investment account. When you changed the beneficiary, did you discuss it with Mrs. Graham's estate planning attorney? She doesn't have one. Did you advise her to get independent legal advice before making her sister the sole beneficiary of a $700,000 account? It was a family matter. We discussed it as a family. Did you explain to her that this would disinherit her chosen charitable beneficiary? She was aware of the change. How can you be sure? She signed the form. He asked Marion about the wedding. Why wasn't your sister invited to her nephew's wedding? She was invited. She chose not to come. The travel was too much. Did you tell the groom she wasn't coming because she was not up to it? I may have. I was concerned for her. So you made the decision for her. I made a recommendation as her concerned sister. The independent competency evaluation was scheduled. A neuropsychologist spent a full day with me, tests of memory, logic, executive function. It was exhausting. The report came back. It was 30 pages long. The conclusion was on the last page. Mrs. Graham demonstrates intact cognitive function for her age. She shows no signs of dementia or undue susceptibility to influence. She has a clear understanding of her assets, her familial relationships, and the legal proceedings in question. It was a dry, clinical victory. I placed the report in my growing file. The court date was set. It was not a dramatic trial. It was a hearing in front of a probate judge, a matter of petitions and motions. We gathered in a small, wood-paneled courtroom. It smelled of old paper and lemon polish. Marion and Jeremy sat at the other table. They did not look at me. Jeremy looked tense. Marion looked pale and angry. Judge Reynolds was a woman with silver hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. She had read the filings. She had read the competency report. My lawyer presented our case. He was methodical. He walked through the timeline. He highlighted the rapid changes made after the new POA was signed. The beneficiary change, the push to sell the home. He entered the competency report into evidence. Their lawyer argued their case. He spoke of familial duty, of concern. He painted me as a stubborn, aging woman who was rejecting necessary help. He argued the POA was prudent planning. The beneficiary change was a grateful gift for years of support. The judge listened. She took notes. Then she spoke. "This is not a case about gratitude," she said. Her voice was calm but carried. "It is a case about autonomy and influence. The law grants power of attorney as a sacred trust. It is not a tool for estate planning by the agent." She looked at Jeremy and Marion. "The timing is problematic. The sweeping nature of the POA, followed immediately by a major financial diversion, followed by plans to liquidate the primary residence. It creates a pattern that suggests the agents were operating in their own interests, not the principal." She turned to me. "Mrs. Graham has been evaluated. She has been found competent. She has the right to revoke a power of attorney at any time for any reason. She has done so. The petition is granted. The power of attorney is hereby revoked, effective immediately." Marion made a small, choked sound. "Regarding the beneficiary designation," the judge continued, "the standard for undue influence is high, but here, the agent who obtained the broad POA also orchestrated the beneficiary change. There is a clear conflict. The change is rescinded. The beneficiary is reinstated to the previous designation." She made a few more rulings. She ordered Jeremy to provide a full accounting of all transactions made under the POA. She ordered the investment account returned to my control. She confirmed the asterisk lis pendens would remain until the accounting was complete. It was over in 20 minutes. There was no bang of a gavel. She simply said, "We're adjourned." The consequences were factual. They were quiet. They were irreversible. Jeremy was required to provide the accounting. It showed the landscaping bill, the car lease payments, various other management fees he had deducted. It was not a vast sum, but it was proof of the mechanism. He wrote a check to repay it. His signature was tight and angry. The investment company transferred the account back to my name. The beneficiary was once again my estate. Marion never called me again. She never wrote. It was a clean, silent cut. The aftermath was not joyful. It was a deep, quiet exhaustion. I had won, but I had lost a sister. I had lost the illusion of family. I changed my will. I made David Chen my executor. I left specific, small bequests to old friends. The rest would go to the charity Arthur and I had always supported, a literacy program for children. I hired a new financial advisor, a woman named Sarah. We met in my home. She explained everything in clear terms. I understood her. I redid my garden slowly. I planted new rose bushes. I let the lilac recover. It took time. The story could end there, but life is not about the victory. It is about what comes after. A year passed, then two. I lived in my house. I paid my bills. I drank my tea at 3. The quiet was my own again. It was no longer a quiet of unease. It was a quiet of peace. One afternoon, the mail came. There was a wedding invitation. It was from Ben's younger sister, Chloe, my other niece. The invitation was addressed only to me. I called her. She was nervous. "Aunt Alina, I wanted you to have this. I'm so sorry about the wedding. Mom told us you were sick. She said a lot of things. I didn't know what to believe." "It's all right, Chloe." "It's not. I should have called you myself. I was a coward." I told her I would be honored to come. And I did. I drove myself. I wore a blue dress. I sat in the pew alone, but I did not feel alone. Chloe hugged me tightly. She smelled like gardenias. She whispered, "I'm glad you're here." I saw Marion across the reception hall. She was staring at me. Her expression was unreadable. We did not speak. We did not need to. The distance between us was a vast, uncrossable ocean. That was the final piece. Not a confrontation, a recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the line that had been drawn and would never be erased. I am old now, older than I was when this began. My hands are more lined. My walks are slower. I sit in my garden. I watch the roses bloom. I think about control. I think about care. They are so often confused. Marion thought she was caring for me by controlling me, by erasing my choices. She dressed it in concern. She weaponized kindness. My revenge was not dramatic. It was a series of papers, a calm voice in a quiet room. It was saying no and meaning it. It was reclaiming my own name on my own accounts. It was dignity. That was the core of it. They tried to take my dignity. I simply took it back. The money was secondary. The house was a symbol. The real victory was waking up each morning in a room I had chosen, drinking from a cup I had decided to keep. I do not hate my sister. I pity her. She lives in a world where love is a transaction, where family is a ledger. She must balance her books every night. I wonder if the columns ever add up for her. My life is small. It is mine. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of the night, a question surfaces. It is not about justice. That was served. It is about the void that remains. If the price of peace is permanent silence from those who once shared your blood, can you ever truly call it a victory, or just a different kind of solitude? I did not hire back the cleaning service. I cleaned my own house now. I moved slowly from room to room with a dust cloth. I liked the rhythm of it. I liked seeing the layers of my own life. Every object had a story: the porcelain shepherdess from my mother, the stack of architecture books that were Arthur's, a small, smooth stone Clara had brought back from the beach. These were not clutter, they were anchors. Sarah, my new financial advisor, came quarterly. She was in her 40s. She had a direct but kind manner. She never spoke to me as if I were a child. The market is volatile, Elinor, but your allocation is conservative. The income is steady. You are more than secure. She showed me the statements on her laptop. The numbers were just numbers to me, but I trusted her to explain them. She did not have sticky arrows. She had charts in plain language. The investment account from your father is here, she said, pointing. It's fully back in your name. The beneficiary is your estate as per your will. Do you want to review that again? No, it's correct. One afternoon, Sarah lingered after our business was done. She sipped the tea I had made. If you don't mind my asking, the legal notations on the house title. The asterisk lis pendens. It was removed after the judgment, but the record of it is permanent. Title companies will see it. If you ever do decide to sell, they'll ask for the court documents. That's all right, I said. It was a serious thing, what they tried. Yes. She didn't pry further. She just nodded. It was a nod of understanding. I appreciated that. A month later, a formal letter arrived from a law firm I did not recognize. It was not addressed to me. It was addressed to the estate of Arthur Graham, care of Elinor Graham. That was odd. I opened it carefully. It was a notice, a claim. The letter stated that Marion Delaney was asserting a quantum merit claim against my husband's estate for services rendered. I read it twice. The language was thick with legalese. The essence was this: Marion was claiming she had provided years of unpaid care and support to Arthur before his death, and to me after. She was asking to be compensated from the estate assets, the house specifically. My hands were steady. I felt that familiar cold focus return. This was the secondary attack. They had lost the direct control. Now they were trying a flanking maneuver, a financial claim based on a twisted version of history. Arthur had died 7 years ago. He had been ill for a year before that. Marion had visited, yes. She had brought casseroles. She had sat with him a few times when I had to run errands. To call it care was an exaggeration. To demand payment for it years later was something else entirely. It was a nuisance suit, but nuisances could become problems if ignored. I scanned the letter. I emailed it to David Chen. He called within the hour. It's without merit, he said. His voice was calm, but I heard a thread of anger. The statute of limitations for such a claim is long past. Arthur's estate was closed years ago. This is harassment, pure and simple. What do we do? We have two choices. We can ignore it. The court will almost certainly dismiss it if she files. Or we can file a motion for a preemptive declaratory judgment. Ask a judge to formally declare the claim invalid before she even files a lawsuit. It's more aggressive. It ends it decisively. Which is faster? The motion. It might also expose her to paying your legal fees for a frivolous claim. I looked out the window. The new rosebuds were tight and green. Do it. I'll need an affidavit from you. A timeline of the actual events during Arthur's illness. Be detailed. How often she visited. What she actually did. I spent the next week on that affidavit. I pulled out my old calendars. I found my journal from that difficult year. I wrote down the truth. Marion visited 12 times in the 14 months of Arthur's decline. Her visits averaged 45 minutes. She brought food on 6 of those visits. She sat with Arthur alone on 3 occasions, for about 2 hours each time, so I could go to the pharmacy or the grocery store. I listed what she did not do. She did not bathe him. She did not administer medication. She did not change bedding. She did not handle any medical appointments or paperwork. She did not provide overnight care. It was not care. It was what a sister-in-law might ordinarily do. It was minimal. I signed the affidavit. I had it notarized at the bank. David filed the motion. He included my affidavit. He included the probate court's final order from Arthur's estate, showing it had been closed without any claims. He argued the claim was time-barred and factually baseless. The hearing was scheduled. It was in the same courthouse, a different judge. Marion and Jeremy were there. They had a new lawyer. He looked young. He seemed uncomfortable. Our turn came. David stood and briefly outlined our motion. He was concise. The judge, a man named Judge Wilkins, looked at Marion's lawyer. "Counselor, I've read the motion. I've read Mrs. Graham's affidavit. What is the factual basis for this claim? The estate has been closed for over 6 years." The young lawyer stood. He cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client provided substantial, uncompensated care and companionship. The family dynamic was such that payment was not discussed at the time, but equity demands she be compensated now." "Substantial care," the judge repeated. He looked at his copy of my affidavit. "According to this, 12 visits in 14 months. Is that in dispute?" The nature of the visits was more involved than is being portrayed. "Do you have a log, contemporaneous records, receipts for medical supplies purchased?" "It was informal family care, Your Honor. It wasn't logged." Judge Wilkins took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at Marion. "Ms. Delaney, you were granted a broad power of attorney over your sister less than a year ago. Is that correct?" Marion stood. She looked small. "Yes, Your Honor." "And that was revoked by this court after a finding of undue influence regarding financial matters. Is that correct?" She whispered, "Yes." "And now, after losing that authority, you are attempting to get compensation from a closed estate for visits you made 7 years ago. Is that an accurate summary?" "I was just trying to help my family," she said. Her voice trembled. "The motion for declaratory judgment is granted," Judge Wilkins said. He did not raise his voice. "The claim asserted is without legal or factual basis. It is time-barred. It is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled." He turned to Marion's lawyer. "I am considering sanctions for a frivolous filing. I will hear arguments on that in 2 weeks. Be prepared to show cause why your client should not pay the opposing party's attorney fees." He brought the gavel down softly. It was a quiet, final sound. We walked out of the courtroom. David walked beside me. Marion and Jeremy hurried out ahead, not looking back. "In the marble hallway," David said, "they'll likely withdraw the claim formally to avoid the sanction hearing. I doubt we'll see another filing." "Thank you, David." "It's done, Evelyn, truly done now." He was right. The legal avenues were closed. The procedural justice was complete. There were no more papers to file, no more hearings to attend. I drove home. The afternoon light was golden. I made my tea. I sat in my chair by the window. The silence in the house was different now. It was not the silence of battle fatigue. It was the silence of a war being over. A cold, clean silence. I began the long aftermath. The rebuilding of a life is not about grand gestures. It is about small, deliberate choices. I joined a book club at the library. It was full of women my age and older. We read novels. We drank bad coffee. We talked about characters as if they were real. No one asked about my family. It was a relief. I volunteered at the very charity I had named in my will, the literacy program. I went once a week to a community center. I helped adults learn to read. It was slow, patient work, sounding out words, celebrating small victories. It grounded me. I was helping, but it was help I chose to give. There was a world of difference. I saw my doctor for a regular checkup. He reviewed my charts. "Your blood pressure is better than it was 2 years ago, Evelyn. Stress is a killer. You seem lighter." I said. The seasons turned. Another year passed. I celebrated my 70th birthday alone. I made myself a small cake. I ate one slice. It was enough. Then, one autumn day, the phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I let it go to the machine. A man's voice, older, hesitant. "Mrs. Graham, Eleanor, this is Peter, Peter Evans, Arthur's old partner from the firm. I hope you remember me. I'm in town. I was wondering if I might stop by for a visit, just for a moment." Arthur's partner. I had not seen Peter in a decade. He had retired and moved south. I picked up the phone. "Peter, hello, of course, come by." He arrived an hour later. He had aged, but his smile was the same, warm, slightly shy. He carried a small paper bag. "Eleanor, you look wonderful." "So do you, Peter. Come in." We sat in the living room. He handed me the bag. Inside was a bottle of sherry, the kind Arthur used to like. "A memory," he said. We talked about Arthur, about the old projects. The time the model for the Civic Center got sat on by the mayor's dog. We laughed. It was a good, easy laughter I had forgotten. Then his face grew more serious. "Eleanor, I have to confess, this isn't entirely a social call. I heard, through the old professional grapevine, about some legal trouble you had with your sister." I felt a flicker of wariness. "It's resolved." "I'm glad, truly." He shifted in his chair. "The reason it reached my ears is, well, Jeremy Delaney applied for a partnership at a firm in the city. My nephew works there. They do a deep background check. The court filings, they came up, the probate judgment, the dismissed claim. It raised red flags about his judgment, his ethics." I said nothing. I just listened. He was denied the partnership. Quietly, the firm cited other candidates were a better fit. But he knew why. He was furious. I heard he blamed you, said you ruined his career. I took a slow breath. I did nothing to him. I only protected what was mine. I know that. Anyone who reads those filings would know that. But he sees it as sabotage. Peter looked pained. "I'm telling you this because, well, you should know the full consequences. They have ripple effects. He may try to cause more trouble, or he may just stew, but you should be aware." "Thank you, Peter, for telling me." He stayed a while longer. We finished our tea. When he left, he took my hand. "Arthur was the best of us. He'd be proud of you, Eleanor, for standing your ground." After he left, I thought about what he said. Jeremy's career setback. It was not something I had intended. It was a side effect, a natural consequence of his own actions being recorded in a public forum. That is how quiet justice works. It does not seek to punish. It merely reveals. The revelation itself becomes the consequence. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt a weary acknowledgement. They had tried to build a future on a foundation of control and manipulation. That foundation was unstable. It was always going to crumble. The winter was mild. I spent my days reading, volunteering, walking. One afternoon in early March, I was pulling weeds in a flower bed. The ground was soft. The air held the first hint of warmth. A car slowed on the street. It stopped. It was a dark sedan. The driver's side window was down. It was Marion. She was alone. She stared at me from the car. Her face was thin. She looked older than her years. We looked at each other across the distance of my lawn, the strip of public sidewalk, the metal of her car. It was the first time I had seen her since the sanction hearing, over 2 years before. There was no anger on her face now, no bright, false cheer. There was only a hollow exhaustion, and something else, something like curiosity, as if she were looking at a puzzle she could not solve. I did not move. I did not wave. I did not smile. I simply looked back. I held her gaze. What did she see? An old woman in muddy gardening gloves. A woman living alone in a house she was not supposed to have. A woman at peace. She looked for a full minute. Then, without a gesture, she rolled up her window. The car pulled away slowly. It turned the corner and was gone. That was the last time I saw my sister. The days unspooled. Ordinary days, precious in their ordinariness. I updated my will one final time. I was thorough. I left explicit instructions for my funeral, for the dispersal of my things. I left a letter for David Chen explaining my choices. I left a small bequest for Sarah, my financial advisor, in gratitude for her respect. The bulk would go to the literacy charity. It would help others find their voice. It felt like a circle closing. I am writing this now, not for anyone else, for myself, to bear witness. I sit at Arthur's old desk, the one in the study. The filing cabinet is nearby. It contains the entire history, the old will, the deed, the court orders, the competency report. It is all there, a testament to a quiet war. The sun is setting. It casts long, amber shadows across the floor. I think about family. It is a word we use for people who share our blood, but it is also a choice. We can choose to see each other, or we can choose to see only what we want to take. Marion chose to see a problem, a liability, an opportunity. I was no longer her sister. I was a portfolio to be managed, an estate to be optimized. I chose to see the truth, and then I chose to act on it. That is the story. It is not exciting. It is not filled with passion. It is a story of papers and patience, of listening and learning, of saying no in a world that tells old women to always say yes. The justice was procedural, it was slow, it was exact, it left no room for theatrics, only for truth. I am near the end of my life now. I feel no urgency. I feel a deep calm. The house is quiet. My house. Every board, every window, every bookshelf is mine, not because I own it legally, because I have filled it with a life I chose, a life I defended. That is the final victory, not the money, not the property, the sovereignty of my own mind, the dignity of my own choices. I will die here, in my own bed, in my own time. The charity will get the money. Some other woman somewhere will learn to read because of it. That is a good legacy. As for Marion, I do not know where she is. I do not know if she is happy. I suspect she is not. People who see the world as a ledger never balance their books. There is always a deficit somewhere. I forgive her, not for her sake, for mine. Carrying resentment is a weight. I have put it down. The evening deepens. I will make one last cup of tea. I will sit by the window and watch the stars appear. My story is almost told. It is a simple one. An ordinary woman who refused to disappear quietly, who used the very tools meant to erase her to etch her name in stone. It is enough. The final question is not for the courts. It is for me, here in the gathering dark. Now that every account is settled and every silence is my own, I wonder, was the love we once had in the distant, uncomplicated past real enough to mourn, or was it merely the quiet before the long, calculated betrayal?